anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
So, football show. Pat Nevin will join us to reflect on the weekend's action. Jose Mourinho, not a happy camper on the sideline. And Pat was at Stamford Bridge, so we'll talk to him very shortly. You were reading an interview your now beloved Pat Nevin was doing with the Mail in the last few days.
Fairness to you, you described Pat Nevin there the last time I was on, when he was on, and I suppose all the bullet points you reference about him in terms of his dad, in terms of the DJ work, in terms of Hacienda in Manchester, his dribbling, he mentioned them all. It was very, very close to what you told me.
To the point where I was suspicious that the Mail journalist may have been listening that night, because he seemed to just hit every point.
I think he probably was. It was literally all of those main points that really surprised me, and it's a great read actually. If anyone,
they've embedded a great YouTube video in it as well of Nevin back in the 80s in his leather jacket walking up Chelsea High Street.
I didn't know about that penalty either that he took. Where I mean, obviously you read the article and you're like, he's going to miss, but without any kind of run up at all, it was like, I don't think he should take a penalty like that. It was pretty bleak.
Not his finest moment.
No. But it's a great read, and just the fact that he had he went off at half time in one pre-season game to go to a gig or something like that. I guess you have to manage players differently.
We should tweet out a link from the Off the Ball account. The Mail interview with Pat Nevin, we'll throw it out in the Off the Ball account if you're looking for it. Pat Nevin, the last few days, just talking about various things. He was DJing at the Shacklewell Arms, East London, on Saturday, and then that was after being at the Manchester United-Chelsea game, and then he drove to watch Everton Crystal Palace. That was Pat's weekend.
And he's very keen to bring something different to the table in terms of... Because I suppose, the saturation, just before we came on, one of the guys inside was giving out that there's too much football on the box, which I kind of agree with in a way.
Yeah.
And it might take away our love of sport, but in terms of analysis, I guess you are looking for that different angle. Even talking about the zonal defending and so on, and Pogba's defending of the corner at the weekend, I'd like to hear, a contrarian view, or at least a view as to how do you defend corners properly. And I've often wondered, should the defensive team in corners take the initiative and basically push players forward on a break that leaves the attacking team almost afraid to put players in the box? Corners are interesting, and the mixture of zonal and man marking, I think we had Stephen Kelly was discussing that as the best policy here on Saturday, but it's an interesting aspect of the game, but it's always good to hear a different view, I suppose, and Pat certainly gives that.
In that interview he was saying as well that he doesn't name the broadcaster, but they told him they couldn't use him anymore because he was losing his hair.
I saw that as well, yeah. If that's the case, he actually doesn't look so bad all those years on, because he's in good nick, but that's pretty harsh, I would have thought.
Very strange.
Yeah.
So it's 1-1 between Arsenal and Leicester, 53 minutes on the clock. Leicester took the lead actually courtesy of a Bellerin own goal, and then Bellerin set up Ozil. Really nice finish from Ozil.
Beautiful finish, yeah. It was just, the way I suppose in tennis when you want to hit the ball softly, you just let it hit the racket and you don't put any power into it, and Ozil just did that. He just connected with and directed in. It was a beautiful finish.
Yeah, caught it just on the bounce perfectly. And
Leicester have been well in it though. I've seen
the better team in the first half, it seems. So we won't dwell too much on this because I think everybody's a bit sick of the Irish national team discussion.
Let's talk about this for another hour.
We'll come back to it another time. The reason we bring it up is Seamus Coleman was speaking to Nathan Murphy after Everton beat Crystal Palace 2-0. It was our live game here on the show yesterday. So Coleman talked about various things. Obviously, he's returned from injury and playing for Everton on the game itself. And then, as you'll hear, I'm sure you've seen the quotes at this stage. Keith Andrews comes up. Keith was pretty critical of the team. Well, more so the management team, actually, than the players last week. So here is Seamus Coleman. Good to have him back, playing for Everton yesterday and talking to Nathan.
You played the full 90 today. Were you touch and go for Tuesday night? Was there ever the possibility?
Unfortunately not. I didn't start training until later this week, and it was one of them injuries. I tried probably to get back for the Fulham game, which would then make me available for internationals, and I'm 30 now and I still don't learn. I still try and rush things, and I probably rushed it a little bit too soon, a bit too eager to try and get back for the Ireland games, and unfortunately I couldn't make it.
You were in and around the camp for the two games. What was your overall assessment of the 1 point from the two matches?
Look, it was disappointing. I thought the performance was better against Denmark. You know, we started well against Wales, but ultimately you want to win the games, and we didn't do that. We were disappointed. I do think that we're going through a transition period at the minute. You know, we're playing lads, you know, from the championship, and you know they're all coming into the team. They're all trying to understand what international football's about, and it's a transition period, and we have to, you know, use these Nations League games to get us ready for March, which is really important.
We had your Ireland teammate John Walters on commentary today, and he was talking about your leadership qualities, how you very much lead by example. When you're not able to play for those Ireland games, do you still have a role in the dressing room? Are you still talking before the games?
You try, yeah, you try. You know, it's not where I want to be. I want to be on the pitch. I want to be helping the team. I want to be helping the manager at all times. And you know, it's a duty that I have as captain to try and make myself available to fly over, even if I'm not playing for the games. And I love playing for my country. I love everything to do with Ireland. And you know, we just need to bounce back and you know, try and give everyone something to be happy about.
Yeah, you say a transition period, a lot of criticism, a lot of pressure coming on Martin O'Neill, which I'm sure you're hearing. What do you make of it all?
Look, it's the way the game is now. You know, pundits have a job to do. You know, I heard Keith saying it's the worst Ireland team he's seen in a long time, and you know, I'm not quite sure about that. We're going through a tough time, but you know, Keith has been part of teams himself that, you know, could have been questioned at times. So very easy from a pundit's position, and we've just got to do our job. And you know, we are a group that's together. We are playing players that are, you know, in the championship. I know you could say the same about other nations, but you know, we're all behind the manager. Sometimes, and I said it here at club level, sometimes players get away with murder. You know, it always seems to be putting the manager's toes, and that's something that really bugs me. Even at club level, I've seen 3 or 4 managers go now, and it always seems to be them who gets the heat. It's never the players. And you know, sometimes we need to stand up and be counted for, and some of our performances have not been good enough. Keith,
as I'm sure you'll know, will defend his role now as a pundit and all that, but as a captain, do you take it all more to heart, the criticism as what's been said about the players around you? Yeah, I do have to bite my tongue at times. You know, go on, let loose. No, I won't. No, look, Keith has got a job to do. I think, you know, Keith is really taking the punditry. I think, you know, he might have been, you know, trying to make a name for himself, or being a little bit harsh the last night. And you know, that's his job now. That's his role. When he was a player, that it was his job to be a player. It was his job to get on the ball and make things happen. And you know, at times he didn't do that. So you know, it's difficult. It's for players, we're all together. We want to be as passionate as we can for our country, and sometimes it is hard to take, you know, that criticism. And Keith would say the same when he was a player. He would have got plenty of criticism, and he would agree that it was hard to take. So you know, we need to stick together. We need to give the fans something to be proud of. And 100% at the minute our performance have not been good enough, but come March, you know, we're hoping to give the country some big nights again, and I think, you know, this group of players has done that at times. John was saying that Robbie Brady could be back for the Denmark game. James McCarthy, I think, is coming back towards the under-23s. There might be a bit more experience on the pitch. You'll obviously be available as well. Yeah, and I think, you know, it's very easy to forget that. You know, I've been injured for a year, and look, Matt Doherty's come in and done great as well, but I've been injured basically for a year. James McCarthy's been out for a year. Robbie Brady's been out for a year. That's three, you know, well, two lads. I don't want to be putting myself in that bracket. Decent players for their country, and I think a lot of teams would struggle to deal without that. And look, I understand pundits have a job to do. They aren't happy with the way we play or the way we perform, but we can't take our eye off the ball, and we need to get together and keep going and try and give the fans something to be happy about. You've been very good with your time. Go back to the family. Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Ouch. Some shots fired from Seamus Coleman there. Bit of steel. I'm sure Keith Andrews, I haven't spoken to him by the way, I'm sure he'd be the first to say that Seamus Coleman and any player on the Irish team has the right to fire back, and he'd have no problem with it.
Yeah, like they have the right to fire back. As a journalist myself, I've dealt with this as well, maybe because of the way I go about things, where you're confronted with this notion of sort of trying to make headlines or trying to make a name for yourself, which is something that Keith Andrews was not trying to do here. And I don't know Keith Andrews, but everyone who talks to me that knows him couldn't say a bad thing about him. And by all accounts as well, he's doing very well in his new career.
He's a great fella.
Yeah.
Honestly. And really cares about Ireland, is not trying to make a name for himself, I assure you. He's really not. He's just given his honest opinion.
When have Ireland been...
He's got a strong opinion on things. And just one point of clarification. Like Coleman said, he heard Keith Andrews saying it's the worst Irish team in a long time. That's not what Keith said, and I know maybe we're getting into semantics here, but Keith actually said it's been one of the worst years in living memory for results. So he's making the point, well,
That's very different.
We've won 2 games in 11 competitive games, so it's one of the worst years in living memory. And he was putting that more so at the door of management than the players. He wasn't just coming on and saying, well, it's the crappiest, worst team in a long time. They are slightly different things. It has been a really bad year, as opposed to this being a really terrible team.
Yeah, that article with Pat Nevin, he mentions how he spoke to Mourinho about who are the 3 people you're trying to talk to when you give a press conference. And he said, firstly, the players, secondly, the players, thirdly, the players. And I'm wondering what Coleman's motivation was, because Nathan didn't goad him into those answers. He must have had some, preordained kind of motivation there. And you could say that he's trying to back a management team that isn't going anywhere. And why not back the management team if the management team isn't going anywhere, which I don't think it is going anywhere. I actually put up a poll on Twitter myself at the weekend. Do you want them to stay or go? And 3/4 of the people, who maybe a lot of them might be League of Ireland fans, but 3/4 of them want them to be sacked, the 2, Martin and Roy. But that's not going to happen in all likelihood, so why not defend them? Now, the stuff about the players have to take responsibility, and he mentions club level, that just doesn't wash, Joe. Like, you've Cyrus Christie playing in midfield in a position he hasn't played in since he was a boy, like, basically. And the Irish team, in terms of just the way they're set up, to me, the players are limited, as Martin alludes to, but, like, you have to question him in terms of what faith has he given the players in his constantly negative utterances about their quality. And Dan McDonnell on Saturday almost lauded Martin for players giving it a go when they went 1-0 down against Wales, and I was just listening, and I was like, this is seriously depressing. Like, that was an understrength Wales team. We were at home to them, and we're being lauded for kind of giving it a lash jack in a kind of a Hail Mary manner in the last 10 minutes, and Dan was probably not far off the mark. That's how bad things are at the moment. And you counter that by, I suppose, the stuff about Stephen Kenny and that, and his article on Friday in the Dundalk Match programme, where he says we have to get this negativity out of the game. And it's funny, when I was at the Milan derby last night, we were talking in the bar afterwards about Uruguayan football and the way they do things over there, where they've basically given one man the role of kind of looking after things almost from the bottom up, and they kind of all buy into a philosophy. And in Ireland, there just doesn't seem to be any real direction in where we're going. I think the underage National League teams is a very positive development, but does everything really stem from the fact that Martin O'Neill's job was to get us promoted to the 2 tournaments, that the last one, we'll say, and the Euros and the World Cup? We didn't get to the World Cup, get to the next Euros at all costs, in effect, and all costs means playing the caveman football that we've been playing. And because the FAI is pretty cash-strapped, I don't really know, and the FAI won't explain that to you. So the word of John Delaney potentially getting a longer deal with the FAI, like, it's a bit disheartening, really, because things are not good.
Aubameyang has just scored for Arsenal. Bellerin, who set up Ozil's goal, has put the ball in as well here for Aubameyang. Bellerin actually scored the own goal as well, so he's had a busy evening. So 64 minutes on the clock. It's Arsenal 2, Leicester 1 at the Emirates. We're going to talk to Pat Nevin next.
Football on Off the Ball.
In association with the faster-than-ever Boyle Sports app, with hundreds of pre-live and in-play football markets. Download it now. Boyle Sports. Time to play.
The election is on Friday. I know you're still hell-bent on winning it. If you don't win that, is this the end of Peter Casey as a career in politics, or would you consider standing for the Dáil, for example, in the next general election?
That's just not going to happen. I will win. I mean, I'm the world's eternal optimist. I got an astounding 13 votes in the Shannon election. If I was the sort of person that got put off by getting 13 votes, I would have given up then. That is not what I'm about.
Hear the full News Talk Breakfast podcast at newstalk.com and on the News Talk app.
The tall tree in Jim's garden had brought him years of joy. it had been a goalpost, a shading spot and a hiding place.
A little pruning and it'll come back stronger than ever. It's gone a bit wild. Just a few of these taller branches and we're done.
Always ask yourself the question when cutting back trees or hedges.
Are you sure it's safe?
Stay safe. Stay clear of electricity wires. For emergencies, call 1850 372 999. ESB Networks, serving all electricity customers.
At AppliancesDelivered.ie, we sell all kinds of washing machines, but there's one model for $179.95 that comes with something very special, a 2-year warranty. And why is that special? Well, for $179.95, most retailers will only give you a 1-year warranty. But AppliancesDelivered.ie is not most retailers, so we double the warranty and give you 2 years. It won't make laundry more fun, but the price should put a smile on your face. T's and C's apply. Check it out at AppliancesDelivered.ie.
Follow the sun as it slowly sinks behind Kinsale Harbour before resting your gaze on the boats coming in, where the only distraction is the scent of fresh mussels as you sit back to let the moment linger. Let go and embrace the Wild Atlantic way of life. Plan your holiday now on the Wild Atlantic Way.
I think it's mad that everyone thinks all insurers are the same. Chill Insurance compares 14 different insurers to get you the best deal. Chill Insurance Limited, trading as Chill Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Pat Nevin, come on in.
Hey, I'm here. How are you doing?
Hey. Arsenal have just gone 3-1 up. Are you watching any of this?
I had to come down there. It was 1-1 the last I got to see it.
Sorry.
Quite a good comeback.
Sorry, 3-1 now. Both goals have come down the right-hand side. Bellerin involved again. Bellerin set up the second. He was involved.
Also scored the OG.
Yes, he did, yeah. Involved here. In the end, it was Ozil who scored the first, who got in the end of the Bellerin pass. Lovely little dink inside. And it's Aubameyang again, I think, who finishes off for 3-1, 66 minutes on the clock suddenly. What had you made of it up till 1-1?
Well, I had to keep on coming in and out of it. I'll not bore you with the entire story, but
okay.
I'm having tech problems over here. It's a bit windy over here, so things were going up and down a little bit. So 1 minute I had Sky, next minute I didn't. So I was
kind of intrigued by the room in his house. So it was the same the last time. I don't actually. I'm trying to figure out what that room is.
It's downstairs, isn't it?
It's like a locker room.
It's in the West Wing, you know. It's actually, oddly enough, if you look around it, my albums are behind those sort of doors behind there. I've got some sort of books and shelves all over this side over here, and that's the kind of quietest bit behind you. But this is where music, videos, DVDs, all the technology kind of is around down this bit, basically out of the way of everybody else.
Yeah. How was the Shacklewell Arms in London on Saturday night then?
Oh, good research, man. Good research. Mad. Actually, you know what? When this place that I DJ, they'll come up and after about 11 o'clock, which is the start of the night, everyone's kind of quite quiet and there's a couple of people dancing. You think if they're not on the stage jumping about like nutcases by 12:30, I've failed. Well, I didn't fail, which is good news. We're all jumping about going rather mad. So it was a good night. But the mad thing is I was finished at 2:30. Few hours sleep, back in the car because I'd been to the Chelsea game that day, and then driving straight up the road to go to the Everton game. So, who needs sleep?
Yeah, I guess you caught a bit of 40-minute nap in the first half of that game yesterday. Anyway, that was kind of the gist.
Yeah, I have to say it was a bit soporific. Having said that, you know, watching Everton, the kind of balance seems okay with that team just now, and they just needed some sort of injection. I kept on thinking, look, somebody's going to have to hit somebody, or a penalty, or a goal, or something that'll annoy everybody. And it turned out it was the penalty kick, you know, and the Everton fans were furious because they felt that Zaha dived again, and he hadn't. I was absolutely convinced that was a penalty kick, and no bias there at all. But that just lifted the thing a little bit. And also Silva. I thought Marco Silva's bravery in his substitutions was superb. It's a wee bit old school that to go from, you know, the system he was playing, which was, you know, a 4-2-3-1, and just say, forget that, 4-2-4. And it was a 4-2-4. And of those two midfielders, one of us was Sigurdsson. So real old school, let's go and try and get the 3 points. I was delighted he got them just purely for that bravery.
An interesting thought then. I know absolutely every job can become a bit routine. even the life of a professional footballer, and there's 40,000 people turning up at Goodison, and the floodlights are on, and there's adrenaline going, and you're live on television, and yet it can still be sort of a sleepy first half. I'm sure you've played many of those games yourself where you're thinking, we're all a bit 6, 7 out of 10 here for whatever reason. It's just that bit dull. Why does that happen?
It's a really good question. Fun enough, I never really felt it. When I felt around the place, if it was a bit dull, whatever, I would just go and try and do something that would excite everyone. So I would kind of feel that and see that and think, right, do something to adapt this, do something to change it. You know, and even if it wasn't something that necessarily was going to lead to a goal, it was something that would liven the place up a little bit. Usually, you know, it was only in hindsight you would realise actually too many players were playing half fit, or you know, they'd had too many games. Too many of the best players were, you know, out. You know, playing. I was going to say out. Yeah, maybe they were out, but actually playing either European ties or more specifically, you know, international ties. And usually in hindsight you could see it, but you know, sometimes you know, day before in training, it's buzzing, it's lively, it's sharp, and then you turn up on Saturday and it's like, and it's really hard to do it. And the best thing you can do is change. You know, really adapt it, do something to change it. Usually that's down to the managers to do something at half time. I mean, Jose Mourinho managed to do something at half time with Man United players. So it's down to the managers to do that, lift it, adapt it, change it, get them interested again, because it's really hard. And a lot of it also is fear. You know, if the players are playing through fear and think to themselves that a point's, and know themselves that a point's not bad here, then why go that extra mile? Why take that chance? So I understand why someone like that. And by the way, there's one other little thing. There are some players out there that hate football. They just don't like it. They play it. It's their job. I felt really sorry for those guys. I knew a few of them over the years. And there was one particular one I remember late in my career at Kilmarnock, and this, he just said, I wish they'd just pay me the money and I didn't have to play. Just thought,
hate's a bit of a strong word, is it?
They no, absolutely hated it. No, absolutely. Now, this one guy in particular who jumped out. I mean, he wasn't a bad player. He could have gone quite far in the game, but he just didn't have time for the game. He didn't like training. He hated training. He thought it was too much of a hassle. In the games, it's probably hiding the fact that he didn't like the stress. You know, because he could play, and the stress was more hassle than it's worth. So he then turned that on the game itself and just didn't like, but had to do it because it made the money. So, yeah, the vast majority are okay with it. I really like it. I love it. But there are some in there that just are doing it because they have to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's the Benoit Sokoto example where he just doesn't like watching football, which is a slightly different thing. He quite likes playing it, but he doesn't you know, he literally turn up and doesn't quite know. Peter Crouch was on a while back, and he was saying there would be mornings on a Saturday where he would turn up at White Hart Lane.
Who are we playing today, boss?
And wouldn't quite know who we were playing. And Crouch would be saying,
but I know
like,
that.
He was, you know, we were in the team meeting yesterday, and you hadn't paid attention, but he liked playing it. Like, it's hard to imagine being that good at something.
He was vaguely indifferent.
And not enjoying playing it. But I guess if you associate it with stress and pressure, then I can see how that turns around very quickly.
Yeah, they should have someone to talk to about that, but they don't want to listen. They just want to pick up a paycheck. Some people. By the way, that's taking nothing away from Crouchy. I have to admit, certainly in my second year, even as far as third year at Chelsea, I would take off my headphones, turn around to the guy sitting next to me and say, right, who is it today?
Right.
And he would say, Manchester United, Pat? And I went, okay, good. But that wasn't a disinterest. That was just a feeling of, I don't care who I play against, I'm going to be better than them. And it was that, so it was a totally different mindset. Don't care who you are, I have to be better than you, and I'm going to believe I'm better than you. So it wasn't an arrogance, it was a confidence, and a definite showing no fear to anyone, even yourself.
There was an interesting anniversary today, or birthday rather, that of Winston Bogart. Because
I know.
What was his, like, I'm just looking at his stats here for the last few 4 years at Chelsea, 9 appearances.
And the money he was picking up every week for that, and he had absolutely no interest of moving anywhere else at all. He was very happy picking up the money, and that was one of possibly the most famous one where I don't actually think he particularly hid the fact that
He didn't. And you'd nearly admire him for that, Pat, in the sense he was like, I'm getting a lot of money here, you know, who's going to blame me? I'm not playing, but who cares ultimately?
Well, and classically, if he sits in his backside there and does the square root of nothing, or the least he can possibly do, he knows that by the end of that, he's set up for life.
Yeah.
And to be fair, there's people out there, there's lots of people out there say, hand up for that one. Obviously, morally, it's just completely bankrupt, but, you understand that he's taking care of his family, taking care of himself. He's not in the pantheon of greats at Chelsea. He's not remembered in that way, I'll be honest with you.
No. Would you have been a better player if you knew in advance that it was Manchester United you were playing and had watched your opposing full-back and done your homework? Or were you better for turning up?
I kind of did homework anyway, just generally about everyone I played against and considered, and sometimes wrote down and weaknesses or strengths you saw in other players. But I definitely have had that attitude myself was, hey, it's not about you, it's about me. You got to be better than me. And it's the reason for it. I've often thought about why it was, because I'm not an arrogant person. But I was brought up through the Celtic system, and the Celtic system was absolutely, hey, they're all losers. We're the winners.
Yeah.
We don't care about anyone else. We're the winners. We will win. And it's almost, you can see parallels in Celtic fans won't thank me for it, but the English kind of public school system of we are superior, and if you believe it enough, and most of the time they were pretty superior, these Celtic players, because we had the pick of the very, very best. But it'd come all the way down from the club, who were the best team in Europe. They were usually the best team in Scotland. Well, they were the 9 years in a row that, I was learning my trade up there. And you got that feeling of if you played 60 games with the boys club or the S forms in a season, if you lost one, that was the topic. What the hell are you thinking about? You didn't win that one if you didn't get Queen's sleep of all the trophies. And when that was, you should, if you ever get a chance to talk to, say, Davy Moyes or Roy Aitken or Charlie Nick or any of us that came through it, Paul McStay, we all feel exactly the same way. And we don't understand why everybody doesn't feel the same way, because we were almost Jesuitical. I'm sure you understand that. You completely and utterly are indoctrinated with this concept. So there's no reason why I should stop doing that when I become a professional. Why should you?
So 2-2 at Stamford Bridge. No win at Stamford Bridge for Jose Mourinho since 2013. He's lost on every return, I think, in fact, until the weekend. You were at the game, were you?
I was, yeah.
How is Jose received pre-match? I mean, what's the general reaction to Jose when he turns up at the Bridge? I presume it's still largely massive love and gratitude and goodwill.
You imagine incorrectly.
Because I saw him at the end giving it the old 3-3-3. I wasn't sure if that was just based on the incident with Sarri's assistant. So even pre-match, it's gone. You've left us.
Mixed. Very, very mixed. Some people are really quite fed up with, how he's been with the club, how they think he has been with the club. The final times with the club. But some people say, look, we'll never forget. What he did when he did in many ways, along with Abramovich. Change that from a kind of, a pretty average club that won the odd cup now and again and very infrequently to a club that was one of the top clubs in the world, and a big, big part of it was Jose Mourinho. And maybe 10 years down the line, when he comes back, that love will be there again. In fact, not maybe, it will be. That's what happens in football and life. People forget and they move on. But at the moment, it's still too raw. And when Jose's reacting to them and putting three fingers up and things like that, it doesn't go down particularly well. Part of the reason is it's hard to see, because I've talked to lots of Chelsea fans and they've all got a different line on it. But when Jose was having a bad time near the end and everybody wanted him sacked on his second time, those fans en masse stuck by him. They absolutely stuck by him. And to the point you're thinking, well, this doesn't happen anywhere else. People turn on the managers and they absolutely stonewall would not do that. And I think they kind of expected a lot of gratitude that kept on going for a long time after that from him back because of that. I'm kind of guessing, I'm surmising as well. And as I say, some are for, some are against, some are both at the same time. Eventually they will all remember, but it's still eventually, I'm afraid.
What did you make of the game?
Intriguing. Chelsea absolutely weren't anywhere near the best that they are, close to the best that they'd been before. Hazard once again was looking incredibly dangerous. He took a lot of hits in that game, but in the end it was a one hit near the end where, 10-15 minutes into the second half, where Ashley Young, who'd actually been playing on pretty well, tough but pretty well, did get him in the ankle, and that was it. Hazard was out, and when he was kind of partially out of the game, Chelsea were a much, much lesser force, you know, and they're looking a little bit lightweight up front, you know, and it wasn't happening for Mata at all. He was very little involvement in the game.
It's hard to watch Mata, isn't it? It's just hard to watch a player for, I don't know how many months now, where you just that innate empathy that you have as a human being, you kind of want things to happen for him, and you just at the back of your mind, you're like, it's just not going to happen for him, and it's almost hard to watch.
It's hard to, Johnny, you're right. And the reason why it's hard to watch is because if you watched him in the past, in his first little period in Chelsea, you know it's there. You know he's got it. You know, technically his movement, he's running, is absolutely fine. He's got a good centre forward's intelligence about him. But certain sides of his game, which he isn't strong at, which everybody now knows, which is holding the ball up, you know, we know he can get bullied. And if you can be bullied in the Premier League, trust me, you will be bullied in the Premier League. And that's what's happening quite a lot of the time. And of course, he's compared with Giroud, who generally isn't bullied, you know, and as soon as Giroud comes on, the things that Giroud's good at immediately makes him look even worse. He keeps on getting in positions for chances, it has to be said. He scored 2 in 2 games before this one, but he really struggled against the power of Manchester United centre-backs. And you're right, you feel a bit sorry for him. Again, Chelsea fans haven't turned against him, but the kind of love is kind of fading quite quickly. And there's a lot of Chelsea fans that feel, hey, if there's a new centre forward in January, we won't be absolutely devastated about that. If you're going to be a centre forward with a top team, and the top team's going to be pretenders to, you know, winning Champions Leagues or the Championship itself, you got to have a centre forward that's going to score, you know, upwards of 20 goals a season in important games, and it doesn't really look like that at the moment for Mata.
I was just kind of watching the game, and obviously the Pogba hysterics for the corner and all that, but he didn't have a bad game. But I was just wondering what you think of the way that midfield is set up, because I'm not even sure Matic has had that good of a season so far. The games I've seen him, he's given the ball away a bit more. He got booked early on in the game as well, and you know, was there any sort of resolution in where Man United are going by that game, did you think, or is he kind of half plodding along, Mourinho? Because I wasn't sure, did he buy a bit more time in the sense of the last 2 results?
He may, no, I think he's probably bought a little bit more time. But having said that, in the first half they were rubbish. They just weren't particularly good at all. Absolute classic. I'm at the game, so you see the wider thing. Lukaku had one of those Lukaku games where you're watching in Italy and the ball comes up to him and think, oh, he's doing okay. And then you're watching the whole game and you're thinking, are you going to move, mate, at any point? You know, and his first half was just almost laughably bad for that way, if you see him as a part of a team, because he absolutely wasn't part of a team. Second half, he put himself about a little bit more, but, you know, he's generally in David Luiz's pocket for the vast majority, or Rudiger's as well. But he'll come alive when you give him chances. Problem was, nobody was really lively enough, and Pogba was sleepy. It was one of those sleepy days that he has in that first half. And then you watch Pogba in the second half and you think, well, you're a colossus, and you can just stride beyond anybody when you want to, and you can run away from people, and it's as if they don't exist. You think, well, what the hell's going on, mate? How come that wasn't happening first half?
Because
at all?
On paper, to throw in Rashford and Martial and Lukaku is quite an attacking effort from Mourinho, you know. So Mata was in there at the front of that Matic and Pogba midfield as well, and he got a lot of plaudits and was involved in the goals. Is he someone who can knit things together a bit more for Manchester United? Like Danny Murphy and others have made the point that somebody with Mata's vision and passing, especially if he's playing centrally, I mean, he can release the pace of Rashford and Martial and Lukaku.
Yes, he absolutely could. The fact that he's been played wide under Jose Mourinho, and by the way, that happened to him quite a bit at Chelsea as well. He has a 10. He is a classic 10 because he's not got the pace to be a wide man. So he is a classic 10. So if you stick him out there, he's not going to be as good a player as he can be. Stick him centrally, yes, that's absolutely suited to him. Will that be done long term, and will he be trusted by Jose Mourinho long term? No chance. Absolutely.
I thought it was interesting actually in the BBC. There was an interview. I think it was the BBC, maybe it was Sky. I think it was Football Focus. There was an interview with Mata. That was done during the week, but Mourinho was brought up, and he very much, like, there was no, like, I'm massively backing Mourinho here. He gave a sort of a stock answer, but it was a very thinly veiled, like, I'd pretty much be much happier if I had another manager, but I just have to get on with it.
What's the issue with Mata at 10 that Mourinho wouldn't trust?
Can I tell you a wee story about Juan Mata and I? He won the Chelsea Player of the Year for the second time. He was having a great time at Chelsea. People do forget that.
Yeah.
He was fabulous for Chelsea. Great vision, really wonderful. And Josie had come back. And they asked me to present the award to him because I'd won it a couple of times as well. And I was giving him the award and we chatted afterwards. And he is one of the loveliest human beings on this planet.
And you told him to leave?
Yes.
Because I read this in the piece. You told him to leave, did you?
He asked me any advice. No, we were having a joke and a laugh. Yeah. Advice, and I went, get out now. And
you didn't read the piece fully, Joe?
No, I was flicking through it. But I got distracted in the Pat Nevin interview piece. There's an embedded YouTube video of Pat in the 80s in his leather jacket, which completely distracted me and threw me.
I have no idea what piece you're talking about.
Oh, your Daily Mail piece. That's how we knew you were in the Shacklewell Arms in East London. You did a piece with Ian Ladyman.
Did Mata, did he laugh at you and then he goes, oh, actually, you're serious, or, you know?
No. Deliberately, do you know when you can say something and people haven't got a clue whether you've been serious or not? Exactly what I did, you know? So that he's like, did he mean that? And because we'd only just met that day for the first time.
Okay.
It's one of those things you're just thinking, you know, it doesn't make Jose Mourinho a bad person. Just what Mata is not a Mourinho player. Mm-hmm. You know, he's not physical enough. He's not pacey enough. It's all the things that Jose has always completely and utterly believed in and trusted in and worked with him in his career. Mata is the antithesis of it. So, you know, he'll do a good job for him. He'll use him when he's needed. Will he ever be the central man that he goes to? Absolutely not. I cannot imagine that happening.
Yeah. I saw the point made, it was Jonathan Wilson who said United have now conceded 16 goals in the league this season, which is more than Chelsea conceded in Mourinho's entire first season at the club, which is a great statistic. It's the 20th goal as well that United have conceded from a set play. That's 20 from a set play in Mourinho's 85 league games. So we're talking close to 1 in 4 territory here they'll concede from a set play. And okay, the centre-halves, he may have an issue with them. They may not be great in open play. It is a curious thing sometimes when teams go through a cycle of conceding from set pieces because, you know, ostensibly a ball's just lobbed in and it can land on anyone's head to a point. But, you know, when it keeps routinely happening, there's something wrong there and it feels like too cliche to say, well, it must be down to desire.
Do you know, you talk about that, it's bad enough losing those sort of goals. They were roughly between 5 and 6 centimetres per man bigger than Chelsea at the weekend there. So you shouldn't be losing anything. They had 7 players over 185 centimetres. Chelsea had 4. You shouldn't be losing it in any manner or means. So they should be scoring loads. They should be attacking loads. The worst part about it, Chelsea have had 52 corners before that corner this season, and hadn't scored in the Premier League.
Right, you've outstarted me beautifully there.
Should Pogba be doing that job though? I'm just looking at it and I'm like, you know, you mentioned how talented he is, he can do everything. I'm not sure he can defend corners. I mean, should he be even there?
Well, there's plenty of other sort of lumps and monsters there that could do it for him. But you know, he's tall enough and he's physical enough, and I've watched him being good in the air, you know, attacking the ball from the other side. But it's not necessarily where you're big enough and strong enough. It's turning off. And, you know, the ease in which he was kind of blocked, and it wasn't even a clever block. It wasn't one of those blocks where people have worked on.
Very
Nothing
rudimentary.
like that.
Yeah.
He just kind of jogged around, you know, and, you know, so it was lack of desire, turned off a wee bit, you know, and that's just what he does now and again. It's just very, very strange to see the amount of, you know, big players that seem to be able to do that. And I think we've discussed this before. I can't remember ever playing, back in the time I played, with a player who didn't actually give 100%. I can't remember it. You'd have a bad day or a quieter day, but you weren't lacking in effort. But you do actually see that now and again in the modern game. And I find that astounding. And people will say, it's because you too many games now and they're tired. And, not absolutely convinced of that. Players that then would just run until they just basically dropped most of the time. So I find that an extraordinary thing. But, you know, he's a talented guy. But I was stunned by that first half. It was just dull. Right. He looked as if he couldn't be bothered for most of the time.
I don't know if you saw it, Joe, but when they were celebrating the second goal, he got like a little clip in the head from one of his teammates in the celebration, and like you can quite clearly see he's like, oh my head, like, you know, in the middle. I was just like, here, and like he just when he's kind of getting you're back on his side, you're just like, Man, like, you know, when Neil Ruddock got that goal against Man United to make it 3-3, like, he was really, like, he was in a bad way, and he's like, he was all over the place. Pogba got a little clip in the head, and he was trying to manage his hair. He's like, what happened to him? Just like modern football in a nutshell.
The thing which maybe grates with Mourinho is that he couldn't even shut out the game in a Mourinho-esque way. Like, he takes off Martial and Mata, so Herrera comes on, Pereira comes on, and they still can't close out the game, and you're just thinking, I don't even know what Mourinho really stands for anymore in the game if he can't shut out a game like this. I mean, there was a time when Chelsea went 1-0 up in the 20th minute and everybody thought, oh no, here we go. It's over. Game over. And I have not had a satisfactory explanation.
Why does it?
No. Why he can no longer shut out the game. I can understand maybe in an attacking sense the game has passed him by, or maybe he was just never that good an attacking coach. I still don't understand how the man who got Samuel Eto'o to be a genius defensive right winger can now not make Manchester United hard to beat.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I remember having the discussion with Stevie Clark when Stevie Clark worked under Mourinho, and he made a treble substitution one day up at Newcastle in half time, and Clarkey said to him, well, wait a minute, what's going on? What happens if someone gets injured? He goes, it's okay, he'll be fine.
Right.
And anyway, 5 minutes into the second half, somebody gets injured and he's got 10 men for the rest of the game and they get beat. And Clarkey said, well, you got that wrong. And he said, no, I didn't. Just look at the statistics. The statistics will tell you, I've done this. And he's said to many times he's done it in his career. That's many times it's worked. That's many times it hasn't worked. The numbers work.
Yeah.
When you look at him, when he's made the changes he made against Chelsea there, those types of changes over the years, statistically, they still work for him. When they don't work once, we all jump on it and we all say, how idiotic. But they generally still actually would probably work for them the vast majority of times. But it jumps out at you when they don't work. It's one of those ones where you notice the extreme ones.
Yeah.
Having said all that, I think it's back to the previous point that you're talking about, Johnny, there. I think it is specifically, there's players that were willing to really hurt themselves, put themselves in the way, and it's a terrible old cliche, but can you imagine John Terry allowing some of those things to go past him? No, not that type of personality. Could you imagine Pogba not hurting himself in the last minute to get back there? Yeah, maybe you could imagine that one. And it is the different personalities of players. And I think the frustration with Mourinho is he's not got that type of personality of player with him. He had it with him certainly in Italy. He had it with him the first time at Chelsea. Kind of partially had it with his time at Real Madrid, but not, they weren't all buying into it. I don't think that type of player's buying into him anymore to the level they used to. But maybe the game's changed, people have changed, and that's not how you win anymore. You actually have to adapt it a different way. So you're right, you're absolutely right. It used to work, and it should work, but you need to have the right type of people to make it work.
I did see a Jose Mourinho banner in San Siro as well.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, he's
still up there. Johnny was at the Milan derby over the weekend. That's how he spent his weekend.
Oh, no, that's great. I like that one. I'm slightly jealous of that one, but having said that, the Chelsea and the Everton games, between them, they had nearly a game of football worth watching.
Yeah.
I did them both together. Nearly.
We'll let you go. Thanks as ever. Cheers, Pat.
Pleasure. See you soon.
See ya. Good luck. Still 3-1 Arsenal into added time now, so it's another win for Arsenal, this time at home to Leicester. 3-1.
Off the ball on News Talk.
There you go. Your mum's messages and a £5 change for her.
Oh, thanks, Jim. I'll be keeping that change to cover my expenses.
Many people have money taken from them without their permission. It's called financial abuse. Could this be you? Safeguarding Ireland. Promoting the rights of vulnerable adults. Safeguardingireland.org.
Hungry for healthy meal inspiration? Well, Irish mussels are high in iron and protein, and naturally low in fat. Tasty too, especially in a spicy tomato and spinach sauce. Catch yours in store at the fish counter or in ready-to-cook packs. So go on, flex your muscles. Find recipes at boardbia.ie/fish.
Rainy days, dark evenings and cold temperatures are a sign that it's time to get ready for the flu season. So prepare by getting the flu vaccination from your local pharmacy. Drop in for expert healthcare advice at your convenience and minimise your risk of stuffy noses, fever and sore throats, especially those in at-risk groups such as over 65s, pregnant women and those with a long-term medical condition. Think convenient. Think accessible healthcare. Be well this winter. Think pharmacy. Brought to you by the Irish Pharmacy Union.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Now, welcome back. We're joined on the line by Leon Blanche from our show sponsors, Boyle Sports. And obviously, during this section, we will be discussing betting odds and gambling. So if that is not your thing, which is absolutely understandable and fine, or if you're affected by that type of content, then take a time out for 4 or 5 minutes and come back and do join us again. Evening, Leon.
Evening, Joe. How are you?
Good. So we're previewing the Champions League action. Everybody looking forward to Old Trafford tomorrow. What are people expecting?
Yeah, look, I think from a Manchester United perspective, their performances have certainly improved. They've started okay in the Champions League. They've got 4 points from 6. But I think their performance at Stamford Bridge would give you plenty of confidence that they seem to be going in the right direction. And they have been backed. They were as big as 5-2. They're now just a little bit bigger than 2-1 to beat Juventus at home. But I suppose the big story is Cristiano Ronaldo coming back to Old Trafford. Some might say he's lucky because obviously with that red card, he only got the 1 match suspension, but he is back. He's favoured to score first, which is no surprise considering his Champions League record. He's a phenomenal goal-scoring machine. He's 4-1 to score the first goal in that match, and he's 11-8 to score any time in the game. And there's been plenty of support for that. But it's an intriguing game, Joe. I think Mandzukic is out for Juventus. But United are probably just hitting a little bit of form. It was a good performance, obviously, when they came back to beat Newcastle 3-2. And the first game back after the international break, they certainly performed very, very well at Stamford Bridge.
City also playing tomorrow then. What's the market on that game against Shakhtar?
Yeah, look, Man City, they obviously lost their first home game. They're away from home, but they've been backed. They were 1-2. They're now 4-11 City. And I think looking at their performance at the weekend, he was able to leave Raheem Sterling on the bench, who's had a tremendous season so far. But just the amount of options that Guardiola has, Kevin De Bruyne came back. It's no surprise that City are clear favourites to beat Shakhtar, even though it is away from home. But they've just got an unbelievable squad. Everybody is fighting for their position, and that just breeds success. So Man City, certainly, they've been well supported to pick up 3 points away against Shakhtar.
Okay, and then Messi's out. Obviously, there's no Messi in El Clasico at the weekend, or Ronaldo, first time in a decade. He's out for the Inter Milan game as well. So Barca-Inter, what's the word on that one?
Yeah, I think, this is fascinating. Obviously, Messi, we all saw how brilliant he was at Wembley when he ripped Tottenham Hotspur apart in the last Champions League group game. But he's a big loss for Barcelona and Inter Milan. I think if you probably offered Inter a share of the spoils, both of these sides look as if they're going to qualify from the group. But I think Barcelona, they are odds-on favourites at home, but the support has come for Inter Milan. Probably too big a price at 7-1. They're now into 5-1. So still the rank outsiders, and most people still expect Barcelona to win. But any side missing Lionel Messi is going to struggle to get another player to fill his shoes. It's impossible to do. So Barca at home probably should just get past Inter Milan.
Okay, and then one last one. That same group, actually, Spurs in Europe are always an interesting proposition at the moment. We know how good they can be. They have PSV away on Wednesday.
Yeah, and Spurs have made their best ever start to the Premier League, but unfortunately they've drawn a group alongside Barcelona and Inter Milan. They threw away 3 points away to Inter, as we all remember, with those 2 late Inter Milan goals. But Spurs are favourite. It was a very good, solid display against West Ham, keeping a clean sheet. But PSV will attack. Most people are saying there will be goals in this one, but PSV are the underdog at home at 13-5, and Spurs a shade of odds on at 10-11, and they have been supported from even money into 10-11. But I think, Joe, these two teams will be fighting out to see who'll play in the Europa League, because I definitely think Inter Milan and Barcelona will qualify from that group.
Yeah, it has that shape, all right. Leon, thanks very much, appreciate it.
All the best.
Cheers, Leon Blanche there from our show sponsors, Boyle Sports. And do remember to gamble sensibly, or even not at all. By all means, just watch the sport. For more, visit Dunlewy, DUNLEWEY.net for more on gambling sensibly. That's pretty much just done for this evening. Tom Dunn is on the way next. Off the Ball AM tomorrow, 7:45. Tune in with the lads on all our social channels in the usual places. And then we're back tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Mike Ross will be in. He's got his new book out, so we'll talk to Mike Ross.